Hello, YouTube. Bill the Patriot here. I have done zero research, zero preparation for this. I have been upset all day, and I decided I needed to come out here and do what I do best, which is vent about what's bugging me. And let me tell you, the thing that has got me heated today is this Alabama law. And I'm sure most of you are probably a little shocked on how I'm heated about that, because the people that do know me, or the people that have watched a few of my videos, know that I am Republican, I'm conservative, I'm Christian, and I should be happy about this, new law. I will preface this. I think it is a little extreme. I think that going completely 100% is probably a scare tactic for Alabama. I don't know. Maybe they're perfectly happy with it, of making all abortion illegal, even based on rape and incest and, the health of the mother and all the other stuff. And maybe it's a scare tactic because they're hoping to get just a little bit, hey, there's a heartbeat. Don't kill the child. Let's call it what it is. Own up to it. You can call it abortion. You can call it, I could call this this beer right here a soda, but it doesn't make it a soda. So let's call it what it is, murdering children that are just unborn. I would say that it might be a scare tactic. Why am I upset about it? I'm not upset because of the law. I'm upset because of the stuff that I'm seeing all over Facebook of the most ridiculous, extreme nonsense that I have seen in my entire life. For instance, like I said, no preparation, but I've got my little notes here on my phone. For instance, this is one post. I really hope women leave Alabama. I know it's not possible for everybody, but I'd leave on principle. Sure you would. I'm absolutely disgusted by their decision on abortion and their disregard for women's rights. What about the children's rights? What about the child's rights? We're not going to talk about that. Hush, hush, because it doesn't have a voice yet. Even though it would be a child, maybe it'd be a woman. Maybe that child that you are aborting is going to be a woman and would also have rights that you are denying it. I digress. And I'm also tired of government officials using their personal religious beliefs to pervert moral law. Remind me what year it is again. Now, I also would like to be reminded what year it is again, because the stuff that is being said about it not being a child, it just being a ball of cells, it being a fetus, it this, it that, and all the other stuff. What year is it again? What you sound like to me when you say those kind of things is exactly like the Nazis in Germany. They're not people, they're Jews. You sound exactly like the Democrats down in the South right before the Civil War. They're not people, they're blacks. I should be able to beat them. I should be able to enslave them. I should be able to murder them if I choose to, because they're my property. You might as well start waving Confederate flags at your abortion rallies and start waving Nazi flags, because you sound exactly like Nazis and exactly like the slave owners in the South. They're not really humans. They're just a ball of cells. They're not really humans. They're just blacks. They're just Jews. That's what you sound like. And it's ridiculous to me that you cannot see the comparison there, because all you want is for somebody to say, it's my body, my choice. And speaking of body choices, let's move on to the next one here. This was just my favorite. I love it. So, this big fat woman, we're going to call her exactly as it is. If you want, look it up. She was a guest on Trevor Noah, who, in my opinion, is just the most ignorant person on the planet. All of his comedy is literally the same thing. It's like, let's make fun of Trump. 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 Oh, man. Okay, whatever. You're an idiot. I don't watch you. I think you're dumb. But he had a guest on. This is what she said. I'll try to show the picture of this fat, ignorant pig in a minute. But this is what she said. Anti-choice people are not trying to stop abortion. They are trying to legislate who can and can't have abortions, because conservative politicians, their wives and mistresses and daughters, will always be able to get an abortion somewhere. I'm going to stop right there. That might be true. I also agree with that when it comes to my firearms. The politicians don't care when they're making laws saying you can't own a firearm because they also will continue to own firearms and will continue to have somebody protecting them 24/7 with a firearm. So I agree with that. What I don't agree with is the blanketed statement of conservative politicians, because here in California, our governor, who is not conservative whatsoever, Gavin Newsom, had not only mistresses, but slept with his best friend's wife. So don't say conservative politicians and make it only one side. Don't act like the liberals didn't do it. JFK, we all know him and Marilyn Monroe. Mistress, oh, who was the one that was in office with the big scandal? Oh yeah, that's right, Clinton. What was he doing? Yeah, mistress. So don't say conservative politicians, you fat pig. Anyway, she goes on to say, all anti-choice rhetoric does is keep people trapped in poverty for generations. That's the goal. If it wasn't the goal, they would spend their time and money on comprehensive sex education, free birth control, and free contraceptives. You mean like Planned Parenthood? Isn't that the whole purpose of Planned Parenthood? Isn't that what everybody keeps saying when we're talking about defunding Planned Parenthood? But they offer free birth control and free women's health checks and free contraceptives and free sex education. Oh, that's right. That's what you're talking about. Planned Parenthood. I have zero issue. I would guess that most conservative Republicans have zero issue with some of their tax dollars going to Planned Parenthood if they weren't allowed to murder children. If Planned Parenthood was not allowed to perform abortions and murder children, I personally don't have a problem with some of my tax dollars going so that little Susie Q, who can't afford to go to the doctor to have her women's parts checked and can't afford condoms and can't afford birth control, for her to get those for free or discounted and my tax dollars to pay for that. Why? Because I don't want little Susie Q to get pregnant and not be able to afford that child and then go on welfare so that my tax dollars are paying to feed that child. So put your condoms on. They're free at Planned Parenthood. Take your birth control because it's free at Planned Parenthood. And don't have a child. And then we don't have to worry about murdering children. It's really simple. And the problem is that everybody that's up in arms that is talking about it's a woman's right and it's her body, her choice, which, fine, if that's what your argument is, fine, but own up to it. It's her right, and it's her body, and it's her choice, and right now, in America, most states, other than now what Alabama's trying to do, is saying it's okay to murder children. That does not mean it is morally right. Going back to the original Facebook post of religious people and their morals. There is not a single religion, I'll get back to that one. Most religions and even non-religious people say it's not okay to murder people. Most religions. And I say most because there is one that thinks it's perfectly fine to murder their wife if their wife does something that they disagree with. Just disagree with, they can stone them in the streets. If you're a homosexual, this same religion will behead you, murder you, burn you because you're a homosexual. You're not a person. In their mind, thank you. Thank you to my cameraman back there. You are not a person. In their mind, let's call it like it, the Muslims don't think that homosexuals are people. So it's okay. In their mind, it's okay. Now, why is their moral high ground of it's okay to murder a homosexual any different than yours? It's okay to murder a child because you don't think it's a person. And maybe because it's not a fully formed person. Well, that's fine. If you're not a fully formed person, it's okay to murder you. So if you're born without an arm, which happens sometimes, murder it. Not fully formed, murder it. If I went to a bald eagle's nest right now and I pulled out an egg that was not fully formed yet and I threw it on the ground, I would go to federal prison for years. Why? Because it's protected. Why is it protected? Because it's endangered. Why is it endangered? Because of man. All of that we get. But I believe that even an endangered animal is less valuable than a human life. And I think that most people would agree. Yes, human life is more valuable than animal life. But if we're protecting eggs that have not hatched yet because we consider that to be a life, how are we not saying that the same thing that is growing inside of a womb of a woman is not a life until it is born? And let's be honest, I didn't hear people that were not up in arms disagreeing with, we think it's okay to have a late-term abortion all the way up until and even after birth. How can you sit here and go, woman's right, her choice, when it literally is now out of her body and, well, we botched that abortion. Kill it. Because it's not a life. It's not a person in your mind. What makes your moral high ground better than anybody else's? Why is your opinion better than anybody else's? It's not. And honestly, like I said, with the original post of religious morals pushing it on, their bodies, it's not just religious morals. If we did like The Purge, if you haven't seen the movie The Purge, basically 24 hours, all crime is legal. If that happened and we passed that and it was law, I still would not go out and murder another human being. Why? Because it's still morally wrong. I would not break into my neighbor's house and steal his television because I knew I can't go to jail. It's legal for 24 hours. Why? Because it's still morally wrong. So just because you have a piece of paper that is written by somebody in Congress saying it's okay to murder a child does not make it right. It's still morally wrong. And you want to call it a fetus, you want to call it whatever else you want. Own it. At least own it. If you're going to do it, at least own it. I murdered a child because I wasn't ready to have one yet. Don't call it something else. Don't try to sugarcoat it. That's what the Germans did to the Jews. They're not real people, they're Jews. Don't sugarcoat it. They were people. They just weren't like you. Don't be like the Southerns and the Confederates. Oh, well, they're just blacks. They're not real people. That's what you sound like. It's not a real person. It's a baby. I cannot understand how you can sit here and defend murdering a child. Because honestly, all abortion is anti-consequence. It's anti-consequence. You didn't take your birth control. You didn't have protected sex. You probably were having sex when you shouldn't have been anyway. And now you are responsible for a life. And you don't want to be. So it's anti-consequence. That's what it is. It has nothing to do with health. And again, in the 0.03% of the time that an abortion is performed, and it's for rape or incest or any of the other random things that you're saying, well, what about that? In the 0.03%, fine, I agree with you. Abortion's fine if the person wants it. I don't want to remember that I was raped every time I see this child, so I murdered the child before it was born. At least say that. If somebody broke into the house and was beating the crap out of me, I wouldn't say and try to sugarcoat it. No, I killed that dude because I was protecting myself. But I wouldn't try to say that it wasn't murder or it wasn't killing or it wasn't taking a life, because that's what it would be happening. Don't try to go. It's like a army man, that sounded ridiculous. It's like anybody in the military saying, well, when I was over there fighting the war, I didn't kill anybody. No, they did. Were they justified? Were they shooting back? Were they defending themselves? Absolutely. But they're not trying to say it wasn't what it was. So stop trying to call it what it wasn't. All right? Now let's get back to this fat, ignorant pig that is saying, on Trevor Noah that, if we're just trying to keep people in poverty by getting rid of abortion. Again, it's anti-consequence. That's all it is, anti-consequence. If you took your birth control and you were responsible, you wouldn't get pregnant. If you were using condoms, you wouldn't get pregnant. And again, don't say, I know there's going to be people going, they're not 100% effective. You're right, they're not 100% effective. But 99% effective is still a whole lot better than 0% effective. Can't argue math on 99 is way higher than 0. And you know what is 100% effective if you don't want to have a child? Don't have sex. That's 100% effective. One time in history, if you don't want to believe it, then I guess 0 times in history has somebody ever been pregnant that did not have sex. Read your Bible, people. It's in there. If you don't believe in that, then never in the history of mankind has somebody ever gotten pregnant by not having sex. So it's 100% effective. So if you are not ready, then don't have sex. That's 100% effective. Back to this fat cow. So that's her opinion. So I decided to look into this fat, and I'm gonna just again because I own it. I'll own it. The fat cow. Her name is Lindy West. You should look her up. Make sure you got a widescreen though. So So Lindy West. She's a writer, comedian, and activist. You got to be a comedian to be this big. She's the author of an essay of collection called Shrill Notes from a Loud Woman. Shrill Notes from a Loud Woman. I have not heard her voice, but I can only imagine. She's a contributing opinion writer for the New York Times, and her topics include feminism, shocker, popular culture, and the fat acceptance movement. Yeah. Listen, hold on. We're gonna break. We're gonna edit in there. Look at this. Okay, hold on. And we're back. Did you see that? She's huge. She's huge. So yeah, she's a very, very large woman. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if you poked her veins to draw some blood and gravy just came out. Very big girl. So yeah, this is the person, again, the fat acceptance movements. So since we're talking about the fat acceptance and, again, don't call it what it isn't. Nobody, I don't care what they say, nobody wants to be fat. Nobody wants to be fat. People say, I'm okay with the way I look, or I accept the way I look. When they use terms like that, it's because they've accepted it. Just like a person that maybe has, lost a leg in a war, accepts the fact that they don't have a leg. But guarantee they want it. They just accepted it. They can move on. So a fat person and fat acceptance, and I'm big and I'm beautiful and I'm in charge. No, you're not. Don't act like that. You're eating away your troubles and your sadness. You're a big girl. Again, at least she's owning it. I'm fat and I'm proud. Good. Good. But don't call it what it is. Call it what it is. Don't call it what it isn't. You're a fat girl. You're a fat ass. You're disgusting. And again, people are probably going to be pretty pissed. I'm actually hoping to get a lot of, comments about how upset people are with this video. Because at least then it's opening some dialogue. I mean, there's probably going to be people that unfriend me and unfollow me. And cool, it's like the trash taken out itself. But honestly, it's like nobody wants to be a big person. Nobody wants to be fat. Nobody wants to be huge. Nobody's shooting for that. Nobody's aiming for it, man. I'm going to see how much weight I can gain and how fat I can get and how disgusting I can be. And hopefully, when I die, the gravy just pours out of my pores. Nobody's wanting that. So, this big old fat girl, who, again, she is apparently the moral compass of this. These are the kind of people that you're following. These are the kind of people you agree with. That it's okay to murder a child. So I guess it's okay to murder anything that you don't consider a life, which, again, the original Facebook post, what year are we in? Sounds like we're back in the 1800s and getting ready to fight a civil war because you don't think a life is a life. And that's the South. That was a Confederate. They didn't think the blacks were a life, a real person. Sounds like we are back in Nazi Germany because the Jews weren't a life. They weren't a real person. So it was okay to round them up by the hundreds of thousands a day and millions and burn them alive. Starve them to death. Torture them. Let's be honest. Torture them. Put them in small things and give them, play mind tricks on them and not feed them and emaciate them and then burn them. Why? Because they're Jews. They're not real people. It's just a baby. It's not a real person. That's what you sound like. So if that's what you're going to be, then own it. Start waving them Confederate flags. Start waving them Nazi flags. Call it what it is. Murdering children. So I feel a lot better. Thanks for listening and sticking in. I'm sorry that I kind of, snowballed and went off on a tangent, had to come back. And like I said, this was just literally a last minute thing. That's why I'm wearing a hat and I didn't shave and I'm drinking a beer and I, threw this up real quick and was like, I got to get this out there because I'm heated. I've been heated all day. So I feel better. Hopefully it makes you think a little bit. Hopefully the people that are pro-life or even some of the pro-choice people kind of think like, oh man, yeah, when they do say it's not a life, that does sound a lot like Nazis. It does sound a lot like Confederates. I mean, again, that sounds a lot like they're not real people. They're homosexuals, and it's okay for us to burn them. Religion and peace. Either way, hopefully at least it gets you thinking and opens up at least some thought process. And again, I'm not saying, I know it's at this point, it is the law. It's the law of the land, Roe versus Wade. And I get that most people are going, no, it's the law and it's perfectly acceptable. But there's a lot of laws out there. Again, there were laws where women weren't allowed to vote, or blacks weren't allowed to vote, or they weren't allowed to own property, or they weren't real people. And they weren't really good laws. You got to admit that. And hopefully it makes you think, well, just because it's a law, the purge, doesn't mean that it's morally okay. It's never going to be okay to murder. It's never going to be okay to steal. It's never going to be okay to honestly just hate a person or a being because you don't think it's a person or a life. And I think that all of us should be able to agree on that. I think the biggest thing that right now needs to be talked about is, when is a life a life? And right now we've got one extreme, that is Alabama, that everybody's freaking out about right now, saying the moment that it is conceived, it is a life. And then you've got the other extreme that's saying, well, even after it's out of the womb, it's okay to murder it. I mean, I think there's some common ground there. And again, I don't think that there's really very many people that are going to say, no, if you were raped or if the mother's going to die, you're not allowed to have an abortion. Now, right now they're saying that in Alabama, and like I said, it might be because they're trying to do a little scare tactic. If I'm going in and ask for a raise for my boss and I want $2, I'm going to ask for $5, hoping for a negotiation stage. That might be what Alabama's doing. Don't know. I will say this. It does kind of suck for all you women that are freaking out going, they're going to take away my right to murder a child. They're going to... Which, if you've already had an abortion, then you already got to exercise that right. And if you didn't, then you're upset that you might not get to murder a child at some point. That's your stance on that. Again, if you don't want to, or if you possibly think that abortion could be non-existent in the future, then prepare for that by not having sex. Pretty simple. I'm going to age myself. 41 years old. Don't have any kids. Haven't had to have an abortion. It's called being prepared. It's called preparation. I also put on my seatbelt when I get in the car. Also own a firearm in case I need to defend myself. I have a fire extinguisher in the kitchen. I'm not expecting a fire. I'm not expecting a break-in. I'm not expecting to get in an accident. But if I know that possibility is there, I'm going to prepare for it. So if you're going to have sex and you know there's a possibility of getting pregnant, maybe some preventative measures instead of going, well, man, now there's a fire. I guess I'll just let the whole house burn down. Oh, I got in a car accident. I should run over the person that I ran into so that way I don't have to worry about paying for the insurance, because that's where you're at. Anti-consequence. Think about it. And while you're thinking about it, think about the fact that now you know how every single American gun owner feels. See this little thing right here that says the Second Amendment? That means it's in the Constitution. That means it's in the Constitution from the beginning. Long time ago. Hey, we got the right to bear arms. And every single day, Americans that respect that Second Amendment, that believe in that Second Amendment, are worried that our right is going to be taken away. And now you know how it kind of feels to be like, oh no, I might not have the right anymore. The difference is that I've owned this gun for a long time. I've owned many firearms for a long time, and I haven't murdered anyone. Where every single time there's an abortion performed, that's the outcome. It's not in the Constitution either. Yeah, he brings up a good point. I mean, everybody, I will say everybody, almost everybody has this little cool computer nowadays. It's real small. It's got this thing on it called Google. You can type in there United States Constitution and you can read it. And it's not in there that you have the right. It's not like First Amendment, Second Amendment, Fourth Amendment, murder children. I don't think it's in there. So maybe I'm wrong. Look it up. Read it. Read that Constitution. I would invite a lot of our politicians to read that Constitution too, because it seems like they love to say stuff like, you can't do that to these illegal immigrants coming across the border. It's against their constitutional rights. Now, how's that possible? Because the Constitution only applies to America and its citizens. I'm not going to go over to Australia and go, hey, I have a Second Amendment right to own a firearm. They're going to go, that doesn't mean anything here. So think about that when people say things like, I have a right in the Constitution to murder a child. That's not in there. You can't lock these kids up in cages when they're coming across the border illegally because they have a constitutional right. No, they don't. They're not Americans. That's not the way it works. That's not the way any of this works. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. We have literally unlimited knowledge at the tips of our fingers nowadays. And it seems like people are more retarded. I don't know if I could say that in PC, but that's pretty much the actual terminology. That's what it means. Slow. More retarded now than they were before we had unlimited knowledge at our fingertips. So look into it. Do your research. Don't say things like, I have a constitutional right to do this when it's not the Constitution. Bernie Sanders. Yeah, he said that, tweeted it out. Women have a constitutional right to get an abortion. Really, Bernie? You've been in politics your whole life, man. You freeloading piece of crap. I mean, literally, you are our employee, and your one job is to know what that Constitution says because you took an oath. I promise to uphold and defend that Constitution. And you don't even know what it says? That guy's losing it, by the way. Anyway, that will be another time. Bill the Patriot, thank you for joining me. As always, if you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, share, comment. If you didn't enjoy the video, like, subscribe, share, comment. Either way, I appreciate it. God bless our president. God bless America. God bless the American people. And hopefully I got a little bit of knowledge dropped on you and made you think just a little bit. I'll catch you later.